Simon Coleman from Euroforest, and only when I was looking for Simon's official title did I realise he'd been recently promoted to the board of directors. So congratulations for that one, Simon. He's the Director of Major Clients now as his official title. Simon's going to give us a bit of information from the Euroforest perspective, but also from the sort of contractor's perspective of finding and keeping and encouraging operators, hopefully, to the industry. We've then got Martyn Davies from SRUC. Martyn's the head of forestry at SRUC, who's going to give us a bit of an insight into the opportunities from an educational perspective and courses and what SRUC do. And then last but by no means least, we've got Emma from Forestry Land Scotland, and Emma is going to give us an insight from her perspective coming through the modern apprenticeship scheme with Forestry Land Scotland and where she's got to today. I think that's really all I need to say at this stage from an introduction, and with that I'll hand you over to Simon for his presentation and insights.
Thank you, Eddie. Let me try and work this. Can everyone see that? Is that working? Thumbs up?
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
So Eddie asked me to speak at this event a couple of weeks ago with the main focus on machinery operator recruitment and retention, which I was glad to do. And the next few slides will kind of 15 minutes or so on my thoughts on how we tackle this problem. So for those of you that don't really know me, as Eddie said, I work for Euroforest. I'm a director at Euroforest. But to just give a little bit of context as to how I came into forestry, I'm just going to a little bit of a talk about how I managed to get into forestry. And I started an interest in forestry while I was at school, at secondary school, and I did workplace experience with the Forestry Commission at Westonbirt Arboretum down in Gloucester. And after school, I went to college at Newtonrig in Cumbria to study a HND followed by a BSc top-up. And as part of that placement, I did a pre-college work placement with the Forestry Commission in the south of England, based out of Alice Holt in '95. And as part of that qualification, or part of that time, I got qualifications in chainsaw, brush cutter, and pesticides. And I did a mid-year placement in '97 in Northern Ireland, which was much more focused on commercial forestry. So timber harvesting, Christmas tree management, and sales. And I then started with Euroforest in 2007 as a trainee manager. So you may be wondering why I am speaking today about the issues about machine operators. And the next few slides I will run through will talk about why I accepted and was more than happy to speak tonight about the issues that the contracting resource is under pressure, as is all aspects of forestry in terms of recruiting. So personal reasons initially as to why I agreed to talk was that before I started working for Euroforest, I was in fact a machinery operator, and I was driving machines for nearly 5 years, mainly forwarders, but occasionally harvesters. And I started my career on machines in Ireland, driving an old brunette, doing first thinnings on very wet ground. And as you can see from the photo, I wasn't always very good and spent quite a lot of time getting stuck. And from Ireland, I went to Sweden in 2005 and did large-scale clearance of windblown timber for Storm Gudrun. I was there for roughly a year before moving to Denmark and doing clear fell and thinnings work in Denmark. I'm still very passionate about machinery. I have very fond memories of my times on machines, and still love to get into the forest and watch machinery and speak to operators.
Simon, your slides are not visible to us. It's just stuck on the first one as far as I can see.
right?
I'm not sure why, but it's not moved from the first one that's got the machine on it. It's not in slideshow view or whatever. Maybe is that what it is? I don't know.
I don't know. No idea. Let me.
Okay, sorry.
Well, no, I'll end it and I'll try again. Can you see that page? Anyone? Eddie,
Yeah.
can you see that?
Yeah, no, we
Yeah,
can see your presenter view now, Simon, which is fine. We
Right.
can see the slides.
Okay, so you didn't see my picture of my forwarder stuck?
Unfortunately not.
Okay, well, moving on. So I also work for Euroforest, and Euroforest at its core is a business that operates by purchasing, harvesting and marketing timber. It's a business that has been in existence from 1991 and has grown very steadily over the last 29 years as the timber industry as a whole has matured. In 91, the business was selling about 500,000 tons of timber, and in 2019, the group of businesses now Euroforest is involved with was selling nearly 2.2 million tons. As a business, we employ about 110 people directly and would be working with around 800 subcontractors at any one time, and would be using about 85 harvesters in the UK and Republic of Ireland. The timber industry as a whole, that I work in, as does everybody else on this call, is harvesting 10, 11 million tons of timber a year. And these numbers, the rate of production is going to be pretty consistent for the next kind of 20 years, climbing slightly in the short term and then dropping back again. But we are looking at relatively consistent levels of output from forests for the next 20 years. And this industry as a sector employs 20,000 people in Scotland and 3 times that across the rest of the UK, and would bring economic input into the UK economy of 2.5 billion. So to put that into context in terms of the harvesting the resource that we need to achieve that, we need about 380 to 400 harvesters working at any one time. And that's assuming a rate of production of about 800 to 600 tons per week. We also, Euroforest also has a harvesting business, Blacklock Harvesting, which was purchased in 2019, based in the north of England, that at the time was operating 7 machines. We got into this business because we had concerns about the availability of resource going forward, both contractors, the age of the contractor fleet, with many contractors contracting businesses in their late 50s. And for this reason, we realized we needed to start to secure our own resource and develop our own timber harvesting service. Now we have grown that business to 15 harvesters and 18 forwarders. And we have just taken on 2 trainee operators and plan to take on 3 further trainee operators in 2021. So as part of this, I've spoken to quite a lot of contractors. I spoke to David Wilmer, long conversations with Davy Dick and colleagues further south in terms of the machine operator resource that the industry currently has. And I asked them all the same kind of questions in terms of the average age of machine operators driving the machines at the moment. And all of them said that their machine operators are in their mid-50s to late 50s. And only about a third of the harvesting operators that are driving machines at the moment would be under 40. And as the industry has matured, so has our expectation on operators. We expect them to be highly professional and operate to very high levels of health and safety and environmental legislation. At the same time, we are also expecting very high levels of output, cutting multiple products for different customers from the same site, all of this going to very productive sawmills that have become larger and seen significant investment in the last decade. This has put increasing demands and pressure on operators who are often working very long hours away from home, which causes problems. But fortunately, modern machines have given us a bit of an elastoplast in recent years because they have equally become very reliable and are achieving much higher outputs. The problem is they are now being driven by guys in their 50s and 60s and in some cases in their 70s. So we have to think about who is going to be driving those machines in the long term. We could look abroad for more operators, but I think we're all very aware of the restrictions that are now on us and are going to be on us for the medium term around travel. And certainly working in one country and living in another is not something I would want to be doing at the moment. We also have uncertainty around Brexit, especially around the free movement of people after Brexit. We also have a weaker pound, and we have growing economic growth in the countries where we would normally be recruiting what would be machine operators and low-skilled workers that would come to the UK economy. And we have the ongoing issue of language and barriers, especially now with health and safety, and need operators with fluent English. So we really have to think about where the next generation of operators is going to come from, and they're going to have to come from within the UK. So in terms of the contractors, you may all say this is a contractor's problem. It's for the contractors to fix, and the contractors are doing what they can. And certainly large contractors, the likes of Jim Wilmer, in 2018 took on 6 trainees and put them through a formal training program. Blacklock Harvesting has done the same recently, as I said earlier, with 2 trainees, with a further 3 planned for next year. These trainees with Blacklock are receiving external training from Bob Forsyth, and other large contractors are doing the same informally and giving people with experience in machinery or experience in forestry opportunities. And a lot of these guys now are being employed when they come into these businesses as trainees, which is giving them some wage security and taking a bit of pressure off them in the early days when they start. This does mean that contractors are having to invest considerable time, money, and resource when they look to take on new trainees. This is not an option that smaller contractors have, one-man bands or guys with just a couple of machines. And certainly speaking to colleagues further south, there are not an awful lot of people being trained and brought into the industry further south. We're also seeing more harvesting contractors offering existing operators the opportunity to be employed, and roughly 25 to 30% of the operators working for these businesses now are on the books and employed. The industry is also using social media far more to engage both internally within the industry and externally, and to promote their own businesses, but also the larger industry to try and attract people. And even the provision as welfare, we've all moaned and groaned about welfare in recent times, but this has brought improving working conditions to all personnel in the forest, which can only be viewed as a good thing. But as an industry, as a timber harvesting industry, what do we need? And as Eddie hinted at the start, we're not very good at promoting ourselves. And we all know about forestry here, but we're not very good at engaging and moving that out of the forest industry. So I think at a high level, we need organizations to promote and attract new people to the industry. We need to raise the profile and awareness of forestry as an industry, especially among young people, and an industry where they can have a good career and a good range of careers. We need to be actively engaging with schools in rural areas adjacent to large areas of forest cover, which the map shows there, where there are high levels of coniferous forestry cover. And we need organisations like Skills Development Scotland and careers advisors in schools to promote the forest industry, especially machine operation, as a career path when they leave school. We need to try and draw young people away from agriculture and construction and try and get them into forestry. And we should be, I think, promoting more about working in a green sector. We're very good at wood for good and grown in Britain, but I think with the drive now for green and sustainable, I think we should really be trying to tie working in forestry as a way of working in a green sector, and also trying to change this perception that cutting down trees is bad. We need to give young people pathways into forestry through properly funded college placements. So I think that's what we need at a higher level. In terms of what we need from colleges and learning centres, I think we need to be offering courses that are suitable with training provided by high quality trainers, and offering a range of courses that young people can do that are offering broad range of forestry skills. Courses like the Barony has been offering are what is needed, but I think we are desperately short of high quality trainers, and perhaps using good quality machine operators is a way of connecting the college experience to the actual forest and the long-term experience of driving machinery, which does have its highs and lows, but can be incredibly rewarding financially. And we need to monitor and coach people when they come into the industry, and inspire and support students as they enter the workplace. How can contractors be part of this? I don't think this should just fall to colleges to do. And I think contractors should be able to access educational funding to recruit and train local people interested in the industry. Contractors should be offered financial assistance if they can recruit and train local people in their geographical area, so we can try and get people working close to home. And new operators should be employed rather than self-employed wherever possible to support their development and skills, but offering them support and mentoring as they need as they further their career. And we need to try and minimize the amount of time that operators are staying away from home. We all need to accept that forestry is only an attractive career if it can be flexible to the demands of young people now, especially young working families with children. And once they're in the industry, how do we retain them? The retention of staff is a problem at all levels in forestry. There's simply just not enough people. And we need to be able to offer good quality training at all levels and encourage more people into the industry. Once there's more people in the industry, there's more people to drive machines, which will drive efficiencies of machines and will mean that people and operators don't need to work such long hours, working a long way from home. And we need to try and keep people working close to home and minimize the amount of time spent driving and staying in caravans. And we need more long-term contracts and working agreements, both with the state and private sector, to allow continued investment in machinery, give security of employment to people at all levels, and hopefully we can retain the staff that do come into the sector. So that's me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Simon, for that insight. Some very interesting points in there, and certainly a lot to think about. It ties in nicely with our next speaker, who, as I said earlier, is Martyn Davies from SRUC, going to give us a bit of insight into the education side of things, what courses are available and what they do at SRUC and the Barony. So I'll now hand you over to Martyn. Hopefully.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I'm just sharing my screen just now. So just a moment, you should get a presentation come up, hopefully. Slide that one out of the way.
That's it.
That there now, Eddie, thank you very much. Yeah, so good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you for Eddie and Jamie for inviting me to speak to you all tonight. So I'm from SRUC. I'm Martyn Davies. I'm the Senior Lecturer for Forestry and Arboriculture. Some of you may not be aware of what SRUC is or what SRUC Barony Campus is. It's the college formerly known as the Barony or Barony College. So if people say SRUC and it's to do with forestry, that's still the Barony College. Barony runs a whole range of different courses, some of which we'll have a look at through the presentation this evening. Has that moved on at all?
Yep, that's it's moved on, Mark.
Moved on, good.
Yeah.
So just to give you a bit of a range of the geographical range within Scotland that SRUC covers, it does cover up from the north in Aberdeen to down in the southwest where Barony is, close to Dumfries, and covers a whole range of course areas. So forestry is a part of a much bigger organisation, and forestry is a key part of the South and West faculty, which is in the locality that forestry falls in. So currently, to do with forestry, there are a range of different course types, all of which have different skills attached to them that are offered. So by far the current mainstay FE full-time courses that are offered through the Barony, they will be the courses that most people are familiar with. It's what Barony has been known for years and years and years. And they are looking to produce your craftspeople, your contractors of the future. There are a whole range of HE courses that SRUC deliver that feed into the forest industry. A whole range of apprenticeships, specialist apprenticeships, school programs, and a whole range of commercial courses. So there is a large offering at the moment. So just looking at the full-time FE courses that are delivered from Barony campus. So in front of you, there are 4 courses. Currently on these 4 courses, we're only just into the start of this academic year. So currently on those courses, we have welcomed 75 students onto those 4 courses, with the certificate in forestry, the advanced certificate, and forest engineering being the most forestry specific courses. So there's about 75 students that have come on to those 3 programs. All of those programs run for a single year, so 1 academic year, typically from August to June. They are all leveled, so they all have a SCQF level attached to them, which is an academic leveling. All of them have theoretical knowledge that is put into practice with a range of different practicals. And each of those courses has a range of different tickets that are offered to the students as part of their course. And each of those courses are designed to deliver a range of different skill types. So one course in the full-time FE offering is not designed to deliver a single skill. They're delivering a range of different skills. So as an example, if we just take our advanced certificate in forestry, so this advanced certificate would follow on from a certificate in forestry. So students would already have some introductory knowledge to the forest industry, such as health and safety, good working practices, tree ID. They would also have practical skills. They would all be able to operate tractors, fell up to small trees. They'd be able to plant trees, etc., etc. The advanced certificate would then look to build on those skills. It's about 60% theory, 40% practical. So it is still a very hands-on course. Some of the knowledge that it would look into silviculture, some basic mensuration, some pest and disease identification, tree surveying, and it would look at more advanced practical skills such as forwarder driving, skidding and winching, potentially tree climbing. There are also additional units that are offered, which could lead somebody into planting. So we could focus on ATVs and pesticide application. So there are options within our courses that do allow people to select a pathway. into their chosen area of the sector. So HE courses, so currently at SRUC, HE courses are delivered anything from a HNC right up to a full master's. And there's a range of those offered again, wildlife and countryside management, sustainable food production, and land management. The forestry department teaches onto every single one of those courses, and a range of different units on those courses to ensure that even land managers and anybody undertaking a wildlife and countryside management degree or master's do get a rounded forestry experience as part of their course. So work-based learning. Work-based learning is a big part of what we do for the industry. So work-based learning is what most people would know as apprenticeships. So apprentice must be employed, and then we are able to tailor the apprenticeship to the employer and the apprentice using a range of different optional units. So if it's an estate that is focused on thinning at that point, then there will be some mandatory units, and then we will use a range of optional units to give them some more focused education and skills training in that specific area that estate is doing, such as thinning. So they'll be looking at small trees, tree surveys, that sort of stuff. If you've got an employer who is more on the establishment front, again, there are units for tree planting and a range of different units to cover various forest establishment skills, such as PA application, ATVs, and digital mapping as well. All of our apprenticeships are portfolio-based courses, so there are no sort of formal tests or anything that's sat. It's a portfolio of evidence that is brought together and then assessed at the end. We run the work-based learning on a block release program. So typically students would come into college for 4 blocks of 4 days skills training and knowledge. And we do visits and training out on site with the employer as well. Typically, a level 2 would take about 12 months and a level 3 about 12 to 18 months. We are seeing a bit of an uptake in employers employing somebody on a level 2 apprenticeship and then continuing them right through to a level 3 apprenticeship. It's what we would call a 2+3. And that program would run for about 2 years. And it would offer them, the apprentice and the employer, a reasonably large range of skills training and knowledge, as well as a range of different tickets that can be achieved in that time. We do run a number of different school programs. The one that is on the screen in front of you is called Growing Rural Talent. This is an initiative designed to introduce schoolgoers from S4 to S5 into the world of forestry. And it brings together what they're going to do at school, what we're going to deliver to them at college, and then what they will complete on a work placement. So we've got a number of schoolgoers from Lockerbie, and there are some schoolgoers from the Borders, and another set over towards Stranraer, who are interested in this program, and they have students enrolled on this program. So it's a way to start introducing and bringing those students in, and they've got a range of different interests. Some of them are interested in establishment side. There's a few that are very, very focused on becoming machine drivers. And what's great about these school programs is we can get them interested in forestry, and then in the future they can go on to do a proper course, whether that's a short course in their chosen skill, or whether that's a college course or a traineeship. They can go onto that and they've already got a little bit of knowledge under their belt. So Graham Hodgson is the coordinator for this programme, and he is still on the lookout for more students and for more companies to be involved. So if you think you could offer a work placement, or if you think there's an opportunity for a school or a group of students close to you to undertake that course, Graham's email is just at the bottom there. Feel free to contact Graham, and he'll be able to give you some guidance. SRUC offers a range of different commercial courses. So commercial courses would be your typical short course, all of your usual sort of contractor type courses, chainsaws, FMO, PA application, ATVs, trimmers, brush cutters, etc. Also offer tree surveys and courses, short courses in ARB as well, so tree climbing and tree surveys, etc., stump grinders. And there are a range of different awarding bodies from MPTC, LANTRA, and plenty of others as well. Something else that SRUC has within its business, there is a academic side. There's an education division. There is also a research division. There are a number of different research programs that relate to forestry, but there's just two here on the screen that we're working on at the moment. So one is actually looking at tree bark as a feed supplement to treat worms in livestock, and the other one is 3D mapping of woodlands and forests for terrain classification, in particular looking at different terrains for different harvesters, or if a harvester needs to be tethered. So coming up with some automated systems that would give some guidance to managers for the future. Both of these research projects have been put to SRUC by industry, so they are their industry research programs. So that's very, very quickly a very brief overview of what SRUC is currently offering as far as skills training goes. For the future, so from September 2021, we are also going to be offering a HNC and a distance learning HND in forestry or urban forestry, with a specific focus on commercial woodland management. We're also looking at a range of other distance learning CPD style programs. We'll come on to some more of those in just a moment. We're also starting a national certificate in horticulture. One of the elements of the horticultural program is production horticulture. So we're looking at nurseries. So Barony campus does have its own small tree nursery. So hopefully the students could get some real life experience in working in a nursery environment. We also have another school program that's about to start. So whether the previous school program looked at sort of S4, S5, this school program is going to be looking at S5 to S6. And that would be for forestry units to run alongside their other choices within school. So they could go on to directly into HE courses or onto other traditional FE college courses. Also moving forward, commercial courses for forestry and arboriculture is going to come within the forestry department, and they were traditionally delivered by a separate department. Because of that, we will be able to expand the range of courses that we'll be offering. So we're going to be looking at offering some GIS courses, some drones and survey courses, some mensuration, introduction to silviculture, and as well as some of the traditional courses such as use of chainsaws, tree climbing, etc. So we're going to continue to expand that range of commercial courses, responding to an industry demand. as the forestry department, we work with a whole range of different partners. We work quite closely with UHI's Scottish School of Forestry, based near Inverness. We're currently starting to develop a national forestry training standard for Scotland, so that any colleges or training institutes offering forestry-based courses will have a standard to keep to, so we can make sure we're all at a parity as far as quality of that education goes. We're doing a lot of sharing of resources and materials with UHI and Borders College as well. We also work quite closely with the University of Cumbria Forestry Department, which is now based at Ambleside, but was previously based at Newton Rig. So we're working on a number of exchange programs with UOC as well. We work with a whole range of different industry partners to provide a whole range of different things, from commercial courses to specific bespoke training programs or work placements. We also have partners that are very good to us with various bits of equipment. Some of the machine manufacturers are absolutely fantastic in the resources that they give to us, in terms of simulators, harvester heads, etc., for the students to get some hands-on experience with machinery. Everybody within the industry is incredibly supportive of what we do, which is fantastic. We do a lot of visiting to a range of different working sites. The students spend a lot of time talking to different contractors and seeing different contractors work, and that's a key part of how they will go on to develop their chosen pathway within the industry. As a team, we are continuing to grow and develop. We are adding new skills to the team. We're diversifying those sets of skills so that we can offer a larger range of different courses. We're continuing to build on our tree nursery. So we're producing tree stock for the local area, and that's all operated by our students with oversight from staff. And the last point is we're continuing to grow and partner with a range of other different partners. At the end of the day, we are all responsible for training the future. We're a part of that, and we are available for any queries or questions that anybody may have to do with training. If it's a bespoke course, if there's anything specific, if there's anything you think we can be doing better, if there's anything we need to add to our programs that are missing, please do get in contact. My contact details are on the screen, and I think Jamie will be making this presentation available to everybody as well. So feel free to send an email or give a phone call if you have any other questions or queries. I apologize for the slides being so text heavy. Whenever we're chatting about skills, there is such a huge amount of information to go through. I wanted people to be able to reference back to look at those slides without having to watch a whole recording. Otherwise, thank you very much. And I will pass back to Eddie.
Thank you for that, Martin. No need to apologise. There's a lot of good information in there. A very good overview of what SRUC are doing just now and what they're planning to offer in the future, which ties in very nicely with our next speaker, who's Emma Staniforth, who works for Forestry Land Scotland and is recently, well, certainly a lot more recently than quite a few people in this call, have gone through the process of a modern apprenticeship with Forestry Land Scotland, and she'll give us a bit of insight into her experience and hopefully some thoughts on how we can do things better going forward as well to attract more people into the industry. Emma, over to you.
Thanks, Eddie. Yeah, hi everybody. Hopefully I can give you some of that background information about being on an apprenticeship and completing one, and maybe some ideas and thoughts for the future. Hopefully Jamie's going to share a quick PowerPoint presentation I did just to give a bit of background information to what Forestry and Land Scotland are currently doing for apprenticeships, which I think is being shown on the screen just now. Thanks, Jamie. So the sort of first slide, or sort of says from the beginning, starts from sort of 2018. But if we sort of take a step back, Forestry and Land Scotland, what used to be Forestry, the Forestry Commission, have been delivering apprenticeships in the South region, especially for the last 10 years, and if not more. But the sort of slides that I've gone from 2018, because even though I completed the Modern Apprentice, obviously I'm not an apprentice anymore. My current title is Work-Based Learning Support Manager. And I currently look after the cohort of apprentices that we have and students. And I support all of our regions to look at future apprenticeships and how we can support staff and local training providers to be able to deliver these for Forestry and Land Scotland. So, Jamie, if you click onto slide 2 for me. It's not going. Can anyone see slide 2?
No, we're still just seeing slide 1 at the minute.
Okay, well, I can talk to you about it, and if anybody wants to see it, then either we can just keep it going or we can share it later. But so from 2018, the most recent sort of bunch of cohorts that we've had in the South, we took on 8 trees and timber apprentices who were based at A, and they were supported by SRUC Barony College for their trees and timber SVQ level 2, what Martyn has just mentioned, in their first year. And then in their second year, they were supported by the Scottish School of Forestry to complete a PDA award. And then in 2019, we took on another 8 trees and timber apprentices, and they were based up in the northern regions of Scotland. So we had 4 based in the north region, 2 in the east and 2 in the west. And again, they followed a very similar pathway to the apprentices that we had in the south by doing an SVQ level 2 and 3, but they were supported by a UHI, Scottish School of Forestry, because that college was closer. In 2019, we took on 4 forest machine operators in the south region, again supported by SRUC Barony. And very recently, as in literally they started last week, we have just taken on 3 mechanical engineering apprentices who are based in the south and the north region as well. So they're all doing current forestry related job roles and apprenticeships with us. This was sort of set up and identified by the regional managers when they looked at our workforce planning, and that's very much what the first presentation was talking about, in the sense of looking at the workforce that we have and realising that in the next sort of 10 years, and 5 years even, we're going to have a lot of people that are retiring. So we need to start to replace those people. And now is the time to do that, because we need to be able to pass on the skills and experience of our current staff to our younger people. So opportunities have been identified by regional managers, and then they're supported by our land management team and our learning and development team to set up links within different regions to look at the areas that need staff provision, and we then look at what frameworks are available for apprenticeships and what training provider is close by. So we look to the Barony to do trees and timber and to deliver our machine operator sort of thing. And my role comes into that by supporting the Barony to be able to deliver the course units and making sure that those course units are correct for what we want. There's no point in our apprentices doing something through the training provider if they can't put that into practice on the ground. So there's a real need and a real importance to have a really good link between any training provider and the employer to make sure that the course that is being delivered is what is going to be useful for us in the future. Some of the things that an apprenticeship covers, and this is where I was asked to sort of give my personal perspective on this. 6 years ago, I started in Forestry and Land Scotland as an apprentice. I had absolutely no experience of forestry I couldn't really tell the difference between any conifers or any broadleaves. Obviously, I knew that one was a conifer and one was a broadleaf, but I certainly couldn't say what the names of those were or what the uses were. And for me to be able to do an apprenticeship was a fantastic experience and a fantastic opportunity for me to sort of get my foot in the door to an industry that I came from an area of England that doesn't have forestry around there. So I never grew up learning about forestry, but later on in life, I realised it was something that I wanted to get into. And by doing an apprenticeship meant that I could access full-time employment and be paid for that, but to receive some really good quality on-the-job training and support from the employer. And for myself, it meant that I could get some City and Guilds training, I could get certificates in things such as chainsaws and my spraying ticket and different licenses that I knew that I would need to be able to further my career in the industry, whether that was with Forestry Land Scotland or whether that was going to go and work for a private company. And ultimately it gave me real, life experience working on the ground, as such, as we say, really putting into practice what that textbook tells you. It's okay being lectured at, but actually, when you're on the ground and you're cutting a tree down, you learn much more from being practical and doing that sort of thing. So for me to do an apprenticeship, it showed me that there was access and an opportunity to see a career pathway in forestry. And really, it's given me a great chance to be able to then share my experience with people like yourselves today. But the job that I now have lets me share my experience with young people, with school-age pupils and students that are thinking maybe about doing forestry. And by having that personal experience, I can share my stories with them and hopefully encourage them into this kind of work. And the sort of benefits to that young person is that it's a secure job with a good wage, as we've mentioned in previous conversations we've just had, that if you employ somebody and they get the benefits of that employment, so they get sick pay, they get the holiday pay, they get a pension access, that's much more attractive to somebody to think about taking a role in forestry. And that's something that we really need to promote when we're going into schools. And maybe at 16 that's not an important thing for somebody, but it's certainly something that the parents are going to sort of like, and hopefully put that message back to the young person when they're talking to them about careers back in their homes. And also it sort of gives you, as we say, you're certificated for wider access into the industry jobs. Okay, you might do, say, your apprenticeship with Forestry Land Scotland, or say with Teal Hill, or with another provider, but actually we're training you, and the training that you're being given is for the industry. It's not just for that specific one employer. And then there's other benefits as well to the employer. So, they get an extra workforce to meet increasing demands, hopefully replace their aging workforce. There's a real potential to develop your own skilled workforce for future, bringing new ideas and a new younger generation, and to be able to share those new skills with the older members, and good training for them as well. Some of the sort of successes from apprenticeship schemes, so for myself, very much is that I've had a great career pathway. 6 years ago I came in as an apprentice, which I completed for 2 years. I very luckily was given the opportunity to go for a recreation craftsperson's role, which meant that I could put my apprenticeship really into practice and become, a permanent staff member. And then I went on to become an apprentice support manager, and now I'm the work-based learning support manager for the South and Central region to encourage more apprentices in there. So I've seen and had the opportunity of a career pathway from my apprenticeship. And okay, I'm not necessarily still cutting down trees or spending days planting, but I'm certainly able to share that opportunity and to share that experience, and to still go on site and give other young people that opportunity and experience, and hopefully encourage them into the industry with us. Currently, Forestry and Land Scotland, some of the successes that we've had with the cohorts that I mentioned from 2018 is that we have, in the South region, out of the 8 apprentices that we took on, we have 7 who are now fully employed by ourselves for our craftspeople. 1 works for visitors services. We have 2 that have gone to Scottish Forestry to work as assistant woodland officers, and 1 has gone on into the private sector to work for a private contractor who is actually currently working on some forestry land. So we've been able to train somebody up to a level that we would expect from a contractor to come back onto our site, which is a really important thing for industry. In the north, the 8 apprentices that were up there, 7 remain, and they're in their 2nd year of completing their trees and timber apprenticeship. 2 have actually got jobs as full-time craftspersons. The forest machine operators, they're in their 2nd year now of their apprenticeship. 3 are still working in the industry, 1 with Forestry Land Scotland and 2 with, I think it's Elliot Henderson, and 1 with Treetop Forestry. And so it just goes to show that, okay, we may employ apprentices and bring them in and be able to employ them and keep them, but it's making sure that there's a pathway to keep them at the end. And that's one thing that I've learned from sort of going out to people and talking to people about apprenticeships, is that if you can show them that there is a potential to keep them at the end of their training, they're more likely to stick that training out. If they think that, okay, I could stick this job out for the next 5, 10, 15, even 20 years, it's an attractive industry. There's not many places now that have careers for life, and I think that sort of terminology is lost now on the young people when you talk to them in schools. They're not interested in staying somewhere and starting at 18 and being there for the next 40 years until they retire. What they're interested in is how much money can I make and how fast can I make it. But actually, when you speak to them about the pathways that they can take, they can see that starting out as an apprentice is a great way in, and that they can stay there for 15, 20 years and then see where they want to go and take the skills that they've learned from that last few years away with them and into different opportunities. So that's kind of the role that I do and my perspective on being an apprentice, and hopefully that's given you a little bit of food for thought. And just to say that currently the Forestry Land Scotland are very much, their work-based learning, very much looking to fulfil the government's recent programme to expand green jobs. So being involved in conversations like this and increasing our partnerships with SRUC Barony and with other training providers and other contractors and other forestry industry businesses is great for us, and it's something that we really need to do together as an industry and not just ourselves, to be able to make sure that we increase and make attractive the opportunities to work in forestry. So that's me. That's my perspective on it, and hopefully that's helped people to understand why we do it and where we're at. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much, Emma. That was very interesting. A different career path to quite a few people have taken into the sector, but encouraging to know it's there and it's been made good use of. One thing I should have mentioned at the start was just that the industry updates we normally have, Jamie sent them out as attached to the invitation email for today, so you will have copies of them attached to that. And I think we are now going to open up for any questions that were either provided before the meeting when you signed up or by the chat that has been going on throughout.
Okay, so thanks, Eddie, and thank you all for the questions you've put in. There have been 1 or 2. I think I'll if I may start off with the 2 questions that came in before the event, and Alex Murray, are you there? I don't see you named on the screen at the moment. So Alex had submitted a question which is very much related to one that that Davey has submitted as well. Would paying machine operators as full-time employees attract more people to the sector? And Davey's question was similar in that. Sorry, it wasn't Davey. I beg your pardon. It was Guy Watt who said, "How do HMRC rules on self-employment affect the harvesting industry's use of subcontractors?" So, particularly problem, Simon. Would you like to give your view on that?
Well, certainly, I think there is a growing trend towards more people being employed in forestry as machine operators, and certainly, you know, in the time that I have been at Euroforest, that is a trend that is increasing, and certainly with the contractors I've spoken to in the last few days are, you know, would have somewhere 30-35% of their people now employed, and certainly a lot of young people coming into the industry are coming in as employed people as they are, you know, learning the skill and the trade, working for contractors. So I think it will certainly help attract more people to the industry, but I think there is still a quite a desire from machine operators to be self-employed and to have options and flexibility as to where they work, when they work, how they work. So
do you, on the sort of HMRC rules on self-employment, do you feel there's a pressure point still there?
I think there certainly was several years ago, and I think that, you know, many of the contractors who have been through the process with HMRC, you know, have satisfied themselves and HMRC in terms of how they are engaging with their subcontractors. But certainly, I think there is still a lot of desire, certainly from guys that I speak to, operators that I speak to, is that they want to be self-employed. They don't necessarily want to be employed. So,
yeah. And moving on to the question that Davy McCracken posed. Davy, would you like to open up and pose your question to Simon?
Yep, if I can find the right button, so hopefully you can hear me now.
Yep.
Yep, so Simon, it was just, you know, certainly through your presentation, and I recognise that training of machine operators in particular is costly. And my question was, you know, how much do you feel industry, private companies would or should contribute to the training of those operators if you're actually farming that out to colleges rather than doing it internally? What is the threshold above which it's more cost effective for a private company to actually get a college to train someone rather than doing it internally, assuming that 100% of the training costs is not necessarily going to be available from the public fund? Is it 20%, 30%, as much as 50%? Whereabouts along that scale do you think the private industry's input into the training should or could lie? Thanks, Jamie.
Hard to say. I hadn't really thought about that in terms of, I suppose, what I was thinking more from, you know, could private contractors access funding to help them develop machine operators? Was, you know, through speaking to people who had gone through necessarily through courses in terms of at the barony in terms of becoming operators, but then had struggled to find work in their local area. And was it an option that local contractors could look to take on local people, and if they could take them on, give them, you know, access some kind of funding to help the support and development of those people as they, you know, as they start training with smaller contractors. So I guess that was where I was looking at it more. So,
are you happy with that, Davy?
It's a question I've been asking for the last 18 months, and I've still not got an answer to it. So, not of you, Simon, just of the industry in general, sort of thing. I mean, yes, forestry is a very important industry in Scotland, but public funding is going to be tight. across the board, and there's a whole host of work-based learning opportunities out there that Scottish Government are looking to fund, not just one particular industry. So, there'll always be pressures on funding, and if industry was able to actually contribute something into that, that might sweeten the pill and make it easier to get an uplift in some of the available costs for that sort of training. That was where I was coming from, not looking at you particularly. It was the industry in general for machine operators.
No, I suppose to a certain extent, you look at government funding of education in Scotland, and students in Scotland can attend Scottish universities with no tuition fees. And I suppose just thinking, is there a way of, instead of it being just in big institutions, giving contractors some help to allow them to do a bit more, training with guys living in the locality, rather than it kind of all being through big educational institutions. So I suppose it's just a thought at this point as to if there is a discussion about how we are getting people into the industry, putting them with contractors as a way of learning and training. Is it something that could be considered?
In that sort of context, Jock McKee at John Deere has come in. Jock, are you there? Would you like to make your point?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my conversations around operator training go back about 15 years. I've put a couple of comments on there. Training's expensive, machine operators. The short courses done at Barney, even go back 5-6 years ago, cost £10,000 for 8 weeks per head. And it's just the fact that it's impossible to get that level of funding from government, from Europe, from everywhere. If I look at it, people talk about industry support. If I look at it, I was doing sums the other day. John Deere have contributed £1 million to training operators in the past 10 years. Now, I don't think anybody else has contributed much more than 100 quid, to be quite honest, but it's a serious problem. I haven't got the answers, and again, somebody's asking there about funding. You actually need to be a training provider to access funding. So for a private company to access funding is close to impossible. So there's, and again, some key takeaways here. We're trying to get guys that leave school to come to forestry, but Forestry Commission's own rules say they can't drive a Ford on commission land to their age 17 or 18. We lost too many young people to other industries because we don't actually allow them to drive machines. So many of these questions come up. I mean, at the recent fairly successful modern apprenticeship for a machine operator, a lot of these questions come up and were answered, and it was probably as big a step forward as we've took. But I would argue we have got training providers, we've got companies that are responsible in doing it, but no one wants to put their hand in their pocket. And again, I put a kind of valid question on there as well. How do you expect a forest contractor to take a 4-year apprenticeship on when no one will give them any work beyond 6 months in front of them? The whole industry needs to look at this a bit differently than currently do. And just a point I know to put on there as well for Simon, the average hours of a UK harvester are actually dropping, they're not going up. And it's only modern technology is allowing the timber to get cut that we're cutting. So we can actually see machine hours coming down, which is a challenge for contractors.
Yeah.
Simon, I'm afraid you're still under the spotlight. Matthew Whitehead from Pontrilas had submitted an earlier question about what before the event, saying what are Confor and FLS doing, and I hope, Matthew, you will have learnt from the presentations of what is happening. But would you like to come in and make your other point that you've posted up on chat?
Hi Jamie, yeah, thanks for that. It was just kind of expanding on it. Yeah, the question regards FLS and the other kind of government organisations is good to see, but what I'd like to know is Euroforest got similar schemes where you're encouraging your contractors to take on young persons? Because I know that within a company like yourself, you'll have kind of effects on working costs and ensuring security of work. And how do do you kind of plan as a company to kind of encourage this?
It's very hard for us to plan as a company because you know, as a company, we the only timber we have in front of us is the timber we buy. So once again, we are in very much in the same position that Jock mentioned, is that you know, Forestry Commission long-term contracts and agreements that we have are a very small percentage of the timber that we actually buy. So in terms of what we can do as a company to give people the opportunity and to promote and, you know, train people, it is pretty limited as Euroforest. But certainly what we have done in the past is where people have come to us and said, can we bring trainee operators onto your harvesting sites, you know, heavily supervised by us, and give them some experience on a live harvesting site. We have certainly done that, you know, with the landowners agreement in terms of getting trainee people experience in forestry. But as a business, there's not an awful lot more we can do than that at the moment.
Sorry, I'm having difficulty with my screen for some reason. Oh, at last I've gotten that back. Coming back to Martyn, Eddie, you had a question for Martyn about capacity at SRUC.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. Martyn, it was really just, you mentioned that you've got 75 students on your FE further education courses at the minute.
Mm-hmm.
Is that close to capacity, or do you have scope to take more in future years?
It would be close to capacity for this year with the added challenges around COVID. But no, in the future, there is scope to increase that, yes.
Thank you, good to know.
So you're not going to ask me for a hard and fast number, are you?
Now that you mention it.
And I had a quick question for you, whether I got tied up with this when we were challenging the Migratory Advisory Committee on jobs on the shortlist. Do you encounter any difficulties with the difference between the Scottish qualification system and the English one?
There are a whole range of different challenges between the two, yes. Anything from funding to different levels to different content. Yes, there are differences in terms of, even down to in terms of how many hours a individual student is funded for. Is different as well. So yeah, that there are a whole range of differences there, Jamie.
Right. Eddie, I think we've covered the majority of the questions that have come up. There are some more points that have been made. I discovered only today that, in fact, when in recording this session, it also records the chat, and I will post that up on the website as well as the presentations. But I think we're probably, time is marching on, and we should just ask everyone whether they have any questions. Well, before I do that, can I give my personal thanks to Simon and Martyn and Emma for their really good, excellent presentations. Really, I just wanted to move on to see whether anyone had any questions on the various industry updates that we circulated before the meeting. Davey, you've got your hand up, or you put it down again?
It was just a thumbs up. I was trying to actually say well done to all the speakers, sort of thing. So that was all.
Okay. So, either shout out now or put a hand up or whatever if you have got any questions you'd like to pose us. As I said, all the presentations and the updates will go onto the website. I don't see any questions, Eddie, so back to you, sir.
Good, thank you very much, Jamie. Thank you for the questions and answers. It was interesting. Yeah, really just to echo Jamie's comments and say thank you very much to all our speakers tonight and contributors as well, those that provided information beforehand, not actually speaking. It's been a very interesting evening. I suppose starting with Simon, it was a good insight into the scale of the industry, but also the scale of the potential problem, or the positive way to look at it is the opportunity going forward for trying to bring young people into the industry. We've obviously got an ageing workforce in terms of our machine operators, and if we don't do something about that soon, we'll lose that skills and knowledge. We should use that while we've got it to help encourage and train younger people coming into the industry. I mentioned it at the start, and Simon mentioned it as well, but I do think we need to get better at selling ourselves as an industry, letting people know there are careers, and there are very good opportunities available, and especially at a time like this where there will be a lot of people out there looking for new opportunities, and industries that are resilient and have managed to keep going through everything that's happened over the last 6 months. Martyn's insight into the range of training options and opportunities that are available was good, and quite an eye-opener as to what's actually out there.
I would agree.
A few key things I think it picked up is very encouraging that you're working on a national standard for forestry training. It's been kind of people working in their own silos in terms of forestry education for a long time now, and trying to bring that together and having a national standard so that we know what institutes are delivering it to what standard people will be coming out at would be good. Also, the sort of working together, working with industry is key, and it's key going forward, not only sort of public sector but also the private sector engaging as well with the education to make sure that, selfishly from the private sector's point of view, that the people coming out at the other end are what we want to come into the industry. You've got to have that input at an early stage. Which also is another point, is the schools programmes, which is also very encouraging, that engaging with people at a younger age. And I think one of the comments in the chat was that maybe even S4 is too late, that we need to be engaging with people even earlier to get them interested in the industry. And then we had Emma finally, who gave us a very good presentation on her career path into forestry. It's reassuring to know that the Forestry Land Scotland Apprenticeship's working so well, bringing people into the industry and training them up to high standard, not only for careers in Forestry Land Scotland, but also coming to work for the private sector and some of the key contractors that the industry rely on heavily. Another sort of points that tied in with other presentations was ensuring that we use the knowledge and experience we've got now before we lose it to bring on the young people coming into the industry. Also, we need to take an industry view on things, not a company specific or organisation specific view. It's an industry issue. We need to address it from that scale. And the fact we have the opportunity to bring people in early in their careers and develop and mould them to what we want and need to deliver what our industry has to over the next 10, 20 years and beyond. And I like the phrase that Emma used as well, was careers for life. It's probably right that a lot of young people don't think that way, but I think once they get into forestry, they will see it as a good place to have a career for life. It's not something you come into for a short period. Generally, once you're in, you're hooked and you're here until it's time to retire. So just reiterate thanks to everyone that's joined the call and the meeting tonight. Thanks to all the speakers. Thanks to Jamie for all his efforts and hard work to pull this together. And I think I'm going to hand back over to Jamie for his last technological challenge of the evening.
So what I want is for everyone to turn their videos on for a moment, and I will try and take a photograph of you all.
That's why I've got the Tell-Hill logo, Stuart.
Excellent. Hang on. Thank you. Very good night to everyone. Safe home if you're not home already, and look forward to seeing you all again, hopefully in the flesh next time. The next meeting of the South Scottish Forestry and Timber Technologies meeting should be in the middle of March. The information will be sent out to you if we can meet in the flesh, which would be very nice. If not, we'll have to continue doing it like this. But thanks for your attendance and hope you've enjoyed it. Good night all.
Thank you, Jamie. Good night, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Night, folks.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Night, Eddie. Thank you.